in the town of Windmere, where the fog never truly lifted and crows lingered too long on chimney tops. There lived an old man named Harold Finch. Everyone knew him. Yet no one truly did. Every morning at exactly 7:47 a.m., he would take the same route. Not a minute early, not a second late. He wore a dark green coat, a weathered tweed hat, and carried a leather-bound notebook that no one was ever allowed to see. Children whispered he had once been a war spy. The elderly ladies at the bakery believed he was a famous writer who'd lost his mind. The truth was far stranger. Harold Finch remembered things that hadn't happened yet. Not vague feelings or hunches, no. He remembered full conversations, accidents, and people he had yet to meet. Names that would later appear in newspapers. Horse races that hadn't run. He once told the grocer, "You'll be robbed next Thursday," and it happened. He warned a boy not to go skating, and the very next day the ice cracked. He never claimed to be a prophet. He didn't want money or fame. In fact, he hated visitors. When asked how he knew, he always said, "I remember tomorrow but forget yesterday." At 81, Harold lived alone in a tall, narrow house on Barrow Street, where every wall was covered with clocks, none of which told the correct time. The mystery of Harold Finch might have stayed a village curiosity until the morning of September 18th. That morning, Harold burst into the post office. His coat was undone, his hair disheveled, and his notebook clutched tightly. He had never looked so afraid. "Lock your doors tonight," he told the clerk. "All of you. Don't ask why. Just do it." People laughed. Some rolled their eyes. But the village priest, who'd once saved his cat from a collapsed chimney, thanks to Harold's warning, took it seriously and spread the message. That night, a tremor struck Windmere. An underground gas line exploded beneath the library, setting an entire block ablaze. But not a single person was harmed. Every house had been locked. The streets were empty. Harold had saved them all. From that day forward, people no longer doubted Harold. Some feared him. Others tried to use him, asking for lottery numbers, business tips, stock predictions. Harold never answered those questions. He had no interest in wealth or reputation. But one question lingered in everyone's mind. How does he know? The answer came from a young journalist named Elsie Webb. She had travelled from London to investigate Harold for her podcast, Unsolved England. She knocked on his door one October afternoon, expecting silence. Instead, Harold let her in. His house was stranger than she imagined. Maps covered the walls, each with cities marked and dated. Photographs of people she didn't recognize, some of them crossed out with red ink. And clocks. Hundreds of clocks, all of them silent. He offered her tea, then said something strange. "You think I'm guessing, but I'm not. When I wake up, I remember the next day in detail. Every smell, every word. But when that day ends, yesterday disappears. That's what this notebook is for." He showed her the book. Most predictions had already come true. Some were dated for the future. "Why you?" Elsie asked. Harold paused, then looked her in the eyes. "Because I died once." In 1962, while hiking in the Lake District, Harold had been struck by lightning. He was legally dead for 3 minutes. His heart stopped. He didn't breathe. When he came back, he remembered a day he hadn't lived yet, every detail of it. And the next day, he only remembered the day after. "Time broke for me," he said. "I'm not aging toward death. I'm aging away from it." Elsie didn't know what to think. Run, laugh, believe, but Harold didn't seem insane. Everything about him was disturbingly consistent. Then she saw the last page of the notebook, November 14th, below it, in capital letters, "The day I forget everything." Harold didn't know what the date meant, only that something different, something irreversible would happen. Blankness, a void. Elsie decided to stay and wait for that day. She prepared her podcast but didn't publish it. As curiosity and unease about Harold grew in Windmere, she watched and waited. On the morning of November 14th, Harold didn't open his door. When Elsie entered the house, she found him sitting in his armchair, staring out the window. His notebook had fallen to the floor, its pages fluttering in the cold wind. Harold's eyes were hollow. "What's your name again?" he asked, turning slowly. Elsie froze. In that moment, she knew. Harold remembered nothing. Not her, not the house, not the clocks, not tomorrow. That day, Harold Finch went silent, and he never spoke again. The next morning, he was moved to a care home, labeled with memory loss and advanced confusion. Elsie released the podcast. It was heard by millions. Some called Harold a madman. Others believed he was a hero cursed by time. Others said it was all fiction. But in Windmere, People still lock their doors each September. 18, they still believe Harold saved them. And on Barrow Street, in that tall, quiet house, the sound of clocks not ticking fills the silence. And if you listen closely, very closely, perhaps, you too will hear the last ticking echoes of a man who once remembered tomorrow. Harold Finch was moved quietly to a care facility, just outside Windmere, a pale brick building with neatly trimmed hedges and a smell of lavender and bleach. The staff called it Meadowvale, but the residents simply called it the last stop. Harold had arrived on November 15th. He didn't recognize the man who signed his transfer papers. He didn't ask why he was there. He didn't ask anything at all. His room was small but pleasant. A window faced a quiet garden. On the nightstand lay a single item, a leather-bound notebook. The nurses said he clutched it tightly on his first day but hadn't opened it since. No one knew what was written inside. He spoke rarely, if ever. When addressed, he responded politely but vaguely. His voice was gentle, measured, like someone carefully choosing words they weren't sure belonged to them. The staff noted that Harold never asked about the past. He never seemed confused, only detached, as if the world had become a slightly unfamiliar play. And he was now a reluctant extra. But strange things began to happen. Every morning, Harold would wake at exactly 7:47 a.m., sit by the window and look out in silence for exactly 13 minutes. Then he would nod slightly, stand, and begin to walk the hallway twice, clockwise. No more, no less. A nurse named Marla was the first to notice. She watched from the far end of the hallway, clipboard in hand. When she once jokingly asked, "Why always twice?" and Harold replied with a soft smile, "It's the number of days I've lost, multiplied by nothing." She didn't know what that meant. Neither did he. One night, a new resident arrived, an elderly woman named Joanna Wexley, sharp-tongued and curious. On her third day, she joined Harold at breakfast. She stirred her tea, eyeing him. "You're the one who knew about the gas line, aren't you?" Harold looked up, his brow slightly furrowed. "I don't know what I know anymore," he said. "Do you remember your name?" "I'm told it's Harold." "Do you believe them?" He smiled faintly. "Do you?" Joanna didn't press further, but every morning after that, she sat near him, not speaking, simply present. Somehow, Harold allowed it. That winter, Harold began to draw in the margins of his notebook. Not words, diagrams, complex spirals, patterns resembling clockwork, and strange interlocking loops. One nurse claimed they looked like astrophysics symbols. Another thought they were just meaningless doodles. But a young orderly named Callum, studying physics part-time, took a photo of the drawings and posted them anonymously on a university forum. A week later, he received an email. "Who made this? This pattern resembles Lorentzian time distortion modeling, but it's inverted theoretical only. This shouldn't exist. Please respond." Callum didn't respond. The next day, the notebook was gone. Harold didn't react. He simply stopped drawing, but his behavior subtly changed. Some nights he would stand by the window for hours, sometimes murmuring to himself. Once Marla heard him say, "I'm on the wrong side of the river." Another time, "I wasn't meant to outlive my own memories." Then one night in spring he collapsed during his evening walk. He was taken to the local hospital diagnosed with a mild stroke. The doctor said he was stable, but something inside him had faded. When he returned to Meadowvale, he spoke no words for 6 days, not a whisper. On the 7th day, as Marla helped him into his chair, he gently touched her wrist. "It's coming again," he said. "What's coming, Harold?" He didn't answer. The notebook was found weeks later, hidden behind a radiator in the recreation room. When opened, it contained 3 new pages. No handwriting, no diagrams, just dates stretching years into the future. Some were circled, some were crossed out. One was bolded in red, June 11, 2029. Under it, just one word, return. When Elsie Webb, now a well-known journalist, heard of this, she returned to Windmere. She was older now, more skeptical, but something pulled her back. Maybe guilt, maybe obsession. She visited Meadowvale. Harold was thinner, quieter, his hair now completely white. But his eyes, those strange, aware eyes, watched her with calm recognition. "Do you remember me?" she asked. "No," he said, then after a pause, "but I knew you'd come." In the final months of his life, Harold stopped walking the halls. He would instead sit under a sycamore tree in the garden, watching shadows move. Sometimes he'd whisper to the wind. Marla once asked what he was saying. "I'm reminding the world that I was here," he said, "in case time forgets." When he died peacefully, just before his 89th birthday, his room was empty. No clocks, no notebook, just one folded page left on the windowsill. It read, "Time is not a line. It is a wound," and I walked through it backwards. Elsie published a second and final episode of her podcast, not with answers but with questions. A tribute, a warning, a curiosity. To this day, no one knows how Harold Finch remembered what no one else could. But in Windmere, they still lock their doors on September 18, and in the garden at Meadowvale, beneath the sycamore tree, there's now a small plaque. Harold Finch, the man who remembered tomorrow. He walked time in reverse so we could move forward.